Dale Myers, who is a Microsoft security engineer, currently working on Office for iOS and OS X. He authored a blog post, well written, and basically that surprised a lot of people. The title of the blog post was 1Password Leaks Your Data. And then the first line is seriously. And he explains this as well as I could. So I paraphrased it a little bit for brevity, but he said, 1Password Anywhere is a feature of 1Password which allows you to access your data without needing their client software. If you browse to your .agile keychain file on disk, you'll find that it is actually a directory. Inside this directory is a file named 1password.html. If you access this file over HTTP, you'll be greeted with a gray page which has a lock image and a password field. And so the idea is that this 1password.html is a sort of a self-encrypted page. And if you look at it with a browser, it just is gray and prompting you for your password. Enter your password and your keychain will unlock, and you have a read-only view of your data. So what's the problem? Well, it turns out that none of the accompanying metadata is encrypted. I discovered this, writes Dale, after having a sync issue with Dropbox. He says, I used Dropbox to host my keychain. The file that had issues was 1password.agilekeychain/data/default/contents.js. Being a curious kind of guy, I opened the file to see what was in there. The answer is the name and address, meaning the URL, of every item that I have in 1Password. Every single one, in plain text. For those of you thinking, so what? Perhaps you have nothing of interest in there. But there are other considerations. Perhaps I signed up for some specific pornsite.com, and this isn't something I want to broadcast. However, I've done just that, writes Dale. Anyone who knows the link to the main login page for my keychain can obtain this file. They can go through and find out exactly what shady sites I have accounts on, what software I have licenses for, the bank card and accounts I hold, the titles for any secure notes I have, and anything else I've decided to store in there. The second and possibly larger concern is that the login URL is stored with the page's title, all in plain text. In other words, if I sign in at https://example.com/login, then that URL is stored with the keychain entry. This is often not an issue, but it can be. I recently signed up with a large ISP in the UK and had to reset my password due to a bug on their system. I was sent an email with a reset link in the email. I clicked the link, enter a new password, and press submit. At this point, two things happen. The first is that my password is reset. The second is that 1Password prompts to save my credentials. Since I used an auto-generated password and I like to keep my password secure, I click Save. Now my new password is stored in my keychain. But what if my ISP's website didn't properly expire that email link after its use? Website developers aren't perfect. We make bad decisions and sometimes dangerous ones. Maybe these guys made a mistake that is all too common. So I go back to my email and click the password reset link again. Sure enough, I get prompted with a screen where I can reset my password again. They didn't check to see if I had already used the link. And now that reusable password reset link to my account is stored in my publicly accessible 1Password metadata And that's, remember, in plain text. Anyone, writes Dale, can go and paste this link into their browser, and they have full access to my account. Dale writes, presumably, I don't need to explain anymore about how this is a huge issue. But it gets worse. I decided to have a look to see just how bad things were. Thanks to people having links for easy access to their keychain on their websites, meaning that since this appears to be an encrypted web page, people have put this encrypted web page on their website for easy access since it's encrypted.
Whoops.
But of course, the metadata is not. So Google has indexed some of these. A simple search brings up results. By looking at one of these, it was a simple matter to identify the owner of the keychain and where he lived. I know what his job is. I even know the name of his wife and children. If I was malicious, it would be easy to convince someone that I had compromised their account and had access to all their credentials, not to mention the fact that they have revealed their location online, which may put their personal safety at risk. So, what did I do? I immediately tried to reach out to AgileBits to make them aware of this serious data breach. When I received a response from one of their engineers, I was given a few links to the details about their keychain and the assurance that not only were they aware of this breach, but it was by design. Quote, when we built the keychain, we're aware, or I meant to say we were aware, that it would be possible to see that a user has logins across different sites because it is unencrypted. While this might have some privacy implications, if an attacker gained access to it, your passwords are never exposed or shared as they are encrypted by your master password, and they do not appear in the keychain in any way. Okay, so Dale continues, searching through the forums, I found claims by employees that it was designed this way for performance reasons. The logic was that if all the metadata was encrypted, for example, like LastPass does, along with the passwords, then when the user unlocked their keychain, if they wanted to search for an entry, all entries would have to be decrypted to find what they were looking for. And that is correct. But I didn't understand and asked AgileBits, what I didn't understand and asked AgileBits was, why not just encrypt the metadata file using the master password in some fashion? Then they only have a single file to decrypt. And I guess this gets into the architecture details, which I didn't look at. Again, their reason was performance. When we first developed, this is now AgileBits responding, or AgileBits. When we first developed Agile Keychain a few years ago, 1Password had significantly less processing power with which to function. And decrypting the keychain on the fly to do something as simple as login search incurred huge performance penalties for our users. Because this provided a poor experience for our users, we decided against requiring extra decryption steps for this process. Okay. Furthermore, I now, speaking, did some additional digging, and I discovered that back in 2012, 3 years ago, they changed things to add encryption for all the metadata. But they were not sure whether this new fully encrypted solution would be completely cross-platform compatible. So they never made it the default, and almost no one is using it. So something has been available to address this for 3 years, but with apparently a reduced feature set. So
you can't
it's
put
not in use.
You can't put your key login on the web and access it that way. You lose that capability.
I will never give them any of my data because this represents a fundamental, crucial failure of judgment. If they're putting the search speed performance in front of security, then they're off my list. So for what it's worth, I don't think anyone would argue with the fact that they have done it wrong, because where we go, what we do, what we name things as part of putting it in our vault should be private and should be encrypted. And the fact that they even knew it 3 years ago and didn't fix it, didn't make it work. Other people have, these people didn't. So thanks anyway.